So as crazy as it is to say, it has been roughly 2 years since both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X kicked off the quote-unquote next generation of gaming. Now it's the current generation of gaming. I managed to get both of these systems at launch, and I've spent a lot of time with them. People always complain, you don't talk enough about the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5 even though you own them, and maybe they're right to some extent. So in today's video, I want to pit these two systems against each other because, I mean, console wars are super fun. Who doesn't love freak out fanboys on Twitter yelling at each other about which console is better? I'm going to respect your time though. In this video, I'm going to talk about the best thing about each system and the worst thing about each system, and then come to some sort of conclusion as to which system I have enjoyed more within the 2 years that I've had them, and maybe briefly talk about the future. So if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's pit these two systems together. And we're going to start things off with the Xbox Series X. Now, admittedly, out of both of these systems, I've probably played my Xbox Series X a bit more than my PlayStation 5. I really enjoy this system. I really enjoy the functionality of it, the menu system of it. The UI is very intuitive, and it's simple enough to navigate everything. It's very crisp, and that really sort of plays into the best thing about the Xbox Series X, in my opinion, which of course is Game Pass. I mean, let's call a spade here, folks. Game Pass is an incredible value. It's absolutely staggering just how much value you get with Game Pass. It has allowed me to play games that I probably never would have checked out on my Xbox Series X because of the fact that, hey, I'm paying for this monthly subscription service, so I have access to all of these games. Of course, you also get every first-party Xbox title available on Game Pass on day one, so it's really opened up a lot of doors for me. I feel it's really opened up a lot of games that, like I said, I wouldn't have necessarily tried before, but now that they're on Game Pass, it's like, well, why not check it out? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Of course, you have the integration of cloud gaming into Game Pass as well, so you don't even necessarily have to wait to download the games. You could just simply stream them, check them out, and if it's a game that you like, it's a game that you want to play, it's a game that you want to further pursue, then you could spend the little time it takes to download something like this. So I really thoroughly enjoyed Game Pass. It's a very impressive service with just the amount of content you honestly get from it. Like, I don't think there's anything that's any sort of comparison as far as the value that you get with Game Pass. So that is by far the best thing about the Xbox Series X. But what's the worst thing about it? Well, I think it's pretty clear what the biggest problem with the Xbox Series X is, I mean, it's the lack of exclusives. Let's be realistic here. Xbox has been saying for years, every year they're pretty much saying, oh, this is the year that all the big exclusives come. This is the year that we finally get things kicked into gear. And once again, 2023 is being prophesized as that year. But as far as experiences that you can only get on the Xbox as opposed to other consoles, it's definitely been very lacking. Halo Infinite was a disappointment for a lot of people. I was one of those people that was disappointed. It's finally starting to shape up after a year to be the Halo experience that a lot of people wanted, but still there's basic things still missing from this game that should have been available on day one. You're starting to see a lot of games that kind of have a quote-unquote Game Pass stink to them. Like, they're games that maybe if they would have came out, people wouldn't have been that interested in them if they weren't available on Game Pass. And I think that's a viable discussion to have. But just for the most part, it's been very disappointing from first-party offerings when it comes to Xbox. Forza Horizon 5, fantastic game. I've loved my time with that. And of course, talking about 2023, it's scheduled to have a lot of awesome games come to the system. Forza Motorsports 8, which I absolutely cannot wait for. Of course, you have other games like Starfield coming out next year as well. So is 2023 the year that Xbox finally fixes their biggest problem? I mean, potentially. I'm willing to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but that's definitely by far the worst thing about the Xbox Series X, just the lack of exclusives, because exclusives make you want to play on a certain console. Exclusives bring you into an ecosystem and allow you to check out other things. So that's probably my biggest area of concern with Xbox, but it does look like it's changing in 2023. Now, because of all of that stuff, the PlayStation 5 has definitely been the better selling system. Of course, after the success of the PlayStation 4 comparative to the Xbox One, the PlayStation brand was riding a bit of a high, and I feel like they've managed to transfer that over onto their current platform. Now, the strongest thing about the PlayStation 5, I mean, it's the weakest thing about the Xbox Series X. You have to talk about the exclusives. Now, have the exclusives been at a rate where, you know, it's very impressive? Not necessarily. I mean, looking at the exclusive library, there's definitely been games that have been hits for me, and there's games that I just haven't really been super interested in. But I feel like the hits more than outweigh anything else that, you know, might be a bit controversial, like The Last of Us Part 1 remake, when you're talking about games like God of War Ragnarok, and even to some extent, you know, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7 is a game that, in my heart, I do hate it. I do hate it because of the fact that, you know, Polyphony Digital, it's just not done the things that they've wanted to do. But at least it is an exclusive game. You know, at least it is something that you can only get on a PlayStation system. I think PlayStation has done a solid job with their exclusive games, but it's definitely been the strongest part of their ecosystem. It's been the strongest thing. I mean, God of War Ragnarok just came out. I've been playing it, and I mean, it's a game that you're like, okay, this is a PlayStation game. This is something that I'm only getting on a PlayStation console, which I still think is a very, very important thing for PlayStation to have, and for any video game console company to have. You know, exclusives are good for the industry. It makes your competition pay attention to you and see you making all this money, and then they want to make money with their own console exclusives. Competition creates, you know, better environments for games. You know, it continues to push companies to push the limits of stuff, and I feel like PlayStation has done a solid job with their exclusives, but comparative to Xbox, they've absolutely blown them out of the water this generation. Now, as far as the negatives of PlayStation are concerned, it was kind of hard for me to put my finger on just one thing, because there's been lots of things that PlayStation has done this generation that I just have not liked, and I really feel like at the end of the day, it all boils down to one individual, and that is Jim Ryan. I think Jim Ryan can be potentially detrimental to Sony in the long run, because I feel like he's just a very wishy-washy individual. Jim Ryan, every time he speaks, it's like you have to take it with a grain of salt. We believe in console generations, you know, we believe in harnessing the power of the PlayStation 5. This man said this over 2 years ago, and they're still making PlayStation 4 games, multi-platform games from the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, such as the aforementioned God of War Ragnarok. Of course, Jim Ryan is doing, you know, price raises in certain regions for the PlayStation. The PlayStation, you know, new online services have been paltry at best. They started out with they have this premium tier that I am subscribed to that's supposed to be giving me PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games, along with PlayStation portable games, and it's been lackluster. Like, this is like Nintendo quality of the output of games that you're getting via this service, and you're paying a premium price for it. So this is definitely just, you know, it's a bunch of little things with Sony. It's not one thing that you can pinpoint like you can with Xbox, but I feel like you can trace it all back to one individual and one thing, and that individual is Jim Ryan. Like, it's just been a very wishy-washy situation with him, and I just don't know how I feel about him as a leader of Sony. I do know how I feel about him. I think he sucks ass. Like, I'm gonna keep it a buck here, you know. I think he sucks ass. Like, I don't like Jim Ryan. I don't like what he's doing, and it kind of worries me a bit about the future of PlayStation. Now, of course, there are other things that you can compare here, but like I said, I'm trying to respect your time. I could go in depth about things like controllers and stuff. I do prefer the Xbox Series X controller over the PlayStation 5 controller. I don't care for the haptic feedback. It doesn't really do much for me. The R2 trigger on the PlayStation 5, it's like you gotta have a freaking workout, and it's white and it gets all dirty. And of course, there have been other things such as additional features and stuff for the PlayStation 5 that the Xbox Series X doesn't have. But overall, which is the better system right now? And really, much like in my original video on this subject matter 2 years ago, I really think it's hard to say. because I mean, as it stands right now, both companies are in very different positions, but I feel like starting up in 2023, as long as Xbox comes through with what they've been talking about coming through with, then you really have to start having a more level playing field. But then there's additional benefit of things like Game Pass. Now, will Xbox's exclusives be able to trump what Sony is doing? I don't necessarily know. I mean, you know, games like Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine and stuff like that, those are some of my most anticipated upcoming PlayStation games, but there is a bit of mystery with PlayStation. For once we actually know what Xbox is doing or what Xbox is trying to bring to the table in 2023, whereas with PlayStation, you know, beyond a handful of games that we've seen, we don't really quite know what their future holds for the system and what sort of exclusives are coming out for it. But I think that almost works a bit in their favor because you have that mystery, you have that excitement. What could be next for Sony? What are they bringing back potentially? What are they maybe funding as far as an exclusive is concerned? At the end of the day, they're really both great systems, honestly. You know, I play them both a lot. I've been playing God of War Ragnarok a ton. I've been playing third-party games on my Xbox Series X as I wait for first-party games to come to the system. And really, at the end of the day, you can't lose. Like, you can't lose. It all boils down to, you know, what your spending habits are and what you prioritize. If you're someone who likes exclusive games, then obviously the PlayStation is a better system for you. If you're someone who just likes a variety of games and you enjoy third-party games, the Xbox Series X is probably a bit better for you right now. Will things change in 2023? Only time will tell. So let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about this. Do you prefer the Xbox Series X? Do you prefer the PlayStation 5? Do you not care about either of those systems? And then I have to ask, why'd you watch this video? I mean, thank you for watching it, especially to this point. We're almost wrapping things up here, but you know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit that bell notification as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. My mouth is very dry right now. I need a sip of soda. Later.